seated. Come to order. Court's back in session.
Robert, you good? Come on.
Good morning.
Good morning, Judge. Just come right over here next to me, okay?
Before we begin any issues on the bond hearing, I just wanted to make it clear, so there's so many interested parties in the news media here, etc., that the reason this is unusual and coming up right as she's been taken into custody is because of judicial conference this week, which means we will not have an elected judge here tomorrow. The magistrate's office thought that this was a vehicular homicide with impairment, which means the magistrates always put that on the next date for an elected judge to set that bond. Because we will not have an elected judge here until Wednesday, that is why it's come before tomorrow. Under those circumstances, it did come to the attention of the magistrate after it was already brought over here and decided to be brought over here that there was not that allegation of impairment, but because of all the process already in place to being brought over here, that is why it's before this court this morning. I just want to make that clear for everybody.
Thank you, Judge. We appreciate you hearing us.
Sure.
The state feels that the bond should be fairly significant. She does have a prior speeding offense, and these offenses that she's charged with, one of them does involve speeding. The homicide allegedly occurred Friday at 11 p.m. She did not turn herself in until this morning, so I think that shows a propensity for flight. And the victim in the case is a Chattanooga Police Department officer, so the state feels that the bond set should be fairly significant.
And Judge, obviously the court understands that in any of these cases, but particularly in a tragic case like this, there's going to be a lot of media attention, Judge, but the court is also constrained by the statutory factors. I can proffer those as to Ms. Hinds, or I can ask her on the record as to the statutory factors. She is a lifelong resident of this community. She was born in Hickson. Her family lives in Hickson. Unfortunately, given the time constraints of this hearing, we haven't been able to get everyone here. But she has lived there her entire life, with some time away in college. But other than that, she's been here. She raised 2 sons on her own in Hickson. She is the postmaster of Saudi Daisy, and she's been employed by the Postal Department for 33 years. Right now, Judge, she has no criminal record other than, to my knowledge, the speeding offense that dates back, I think, as Mr. Williams will candidly disclose to you, from 1997, Judge. There is nothing else on her record at all. She has at this point, she owns a house in Hickson. She has retained counsel. As to Mr. Williams' representation that she presents a flight risk based on the delay of turning herself in, is my understanding that it is impossible to turn oneself in before there is an arrest warrant issued. She met with our office yesterday, and no sooner had that happened than we did contact Mr. Pinkston. Actually, we contacted the Chattanooga police, and I was then in contact with Mr. Williams and Mr. Pinkston throughout the afternoon yesterday. And I had let Mr. Pinkston know to please notify me, get whatever warrants you need, and notify me. She's ready to turn herself in, Judge. She did turn herself in this morning at Amnicola without any issues. And Judge, she is before the court asking that a reasonable bond be set, notwithstanding the extremely tragic circumstances of this situation. It appears to be an accident. I think that the evidence will subsequently show that weather was a major factor, as the court can recall. We've had torrential downpours and fog and other situations. I understand the officer was checking a manhole cover on Hamel Road when this occurred. Judge, obviously those facts are going to be delved into in much greater depth later on, but from what I've seen at this point, we're dealing with a tragic accident with the loss of a life that is a great loss to this community, Judge. But we're asking that a bond be set that is based purely on the statutory factors that are before the court, and we would submit that even were this charged as a vehicular homicide proximate to intoxication, A very standard bond in those type of cases is $50,000, Judge. I understand that that is certainly not charged in that fashion. It is the allegations involve recklessness. So, Judge, we would just ask that the court set a fair bond with that in mind, understanding that the law requires that the bond be set no higher than is necessary to ensure Ms. Hinds' appearance.
Thank you.
She's charged with leaving the scene of an accident that involves death. I think it's going to be pretty clear from the proof that she in all likelihood knew that she had struck an individual there on Hamler Road at 11 p.m. on Friday night, and she left the scene. I think that's an indication of flight, and I think the bond should be set significantly.
And is this officer that was there at the scene?
I don't believe he was there at the scene, no. He is the lead detective on the officer.
Does there need to be any proof that would...
I don't intend to put on any proof today, no.
Okay. All right, obviously this is a tragedy, a loss of life, and of course somebody that I guess has not been before any sort of court other than a speeding traffic ticket. But in this instance, the court would find, based on a significance of the hitting of a person, how that could not have been known and to leave the scene of an accident, whether it was hitting an unknown, whether it was hitting a person or something on the street, to not stop and to leave and then to wait until after. The reason that there was not something to turn herself in on is because the warrants would have been issued had she been there on the scene when that accident occurred and she had stuck back to see what in fact that she had hit. Because we do now have pretrial services, which we have not had in the past, the court is going to count that as insignificant for purposes of setting the bond. The bond will be $300,000 plus house arrest and no driving.
Thank you, Your Honor. I understand that we were set for tomorrow on the docket, obviously.
That was
with
just for
judicial
purposes of setting the bond, and
Very
then,
good, Judge.
of course, all the factors that I stated before, we'll have to give a court date. We can just let the, when they book her with the bond, they can generate that date.
Very good. Thank you, Judge.
Thank you. We will need to get the house, she'll need to stay to do the house arrest and paperwork for the pretrial services.
Very good, Judge. Thanks.
Do we have the paperwork so she can write down the documents?
Oh, yes, I've got to put a bond on each one, so it'll be just 1 minute. Here are all the other papers. I don't know.
I think she just
Oh,
needed
she
the-
just needs the one, right?
She just needed the one. It's right there. I'll
Okay.
make the call. She's already wrote all that information.
Do we have any other?
Judge, we have one more, and then the paperwork for clerk.